Welcome to the Sleepy Science Vault. You have made it here, and that is the only thing that matters right now. Not what came before this moment, not the hours of the day you have already moved through, not the list of things you did or didn't do, not the conversations that replayed themselves quietly in the back of your mind on the way to wherever you are now lying. None of that is required of you any longer tonight. You have arrived at the only place the night asks you to be, and that place is here, and it is enough, and you are allowed to stay. So let's begin with what your body already knows how to do. Feel the weight of yourself, the full, actual physical weight, not the metaphorical weight that accumulates through the day, though that is real too, but the literal gravitational weight of your body as it presses down into the surface beneath you. That surface holds you completely. Every part of you is supported. You don't have to work to stay here. Gravity is doing that on your behalf, and it will continue doing it through every hour of sleep, drawing you gently and faithfully into your rest. Let your shoulders soften now, not with effort, not with intention, just with permission. The small, quiet permission you give yourself when you finally acknowledge that the day is done and the holding can stop. Your shoulders have been higher than they needed to be for some portion of today, and you probably didn't notice. We rarely do. The tension accumulates the way water accumulates in a cup, slowly, incrementally, until suddenly there is a great deal of it, and you can feel the weight. Let it go. Let the cup empty. Let your jaw release. Let the muscles across your forehead soften and smooth. Let the tiny tensions around your eyes dissolve. Those particular muscles that carry, without being asked, so much of the day's vigilance. They can rest now. There is nothing to see in the dark behind your closed eyes that requires their protection. Notice your breathing slow, not because you are practicing anything, not because you are following instructions about breathing, but because a body that is settling, a body that has received permission to stop being on, breathes differently than a body in motion. It breathes more slowly, more fully, more deeply, without trying to. Your body knows this. It has known it for your entire life. You simply need to give it the silence and the stillness in which it can remember what it knows. The breath comes in, cool, arriving, filling. The breath goes out, warm, leaving, releasing. There is a brief pause at the end of each exhale, a moment of complete stillness before the next breath begins. And in that pause, if you notice it without grasping at it, there is something very close to perfect quiet. Allow the weight of the day to fade. Allow the room to grow softer around you. There is nowhere else you need to be tonight. Tonight, we are going to do something that the ancient philosophers would have recognized and, perhaps, approved of. We are going to sit with ideas, not race through them, not extract their utility and move on. We are going to sit with ideas the way you sit with a fire in the evening. Not because the fire is producing anything, not because you need its heat, but because there is something in the sitting, in the unhurried presence, that does something to a mind that rushing never can. We are going to visit Stoicism, the ancient philosophy that has, somehow, survived more than 2,000 years of civilizational upheaval, of the rise and fall of empires, of the long transformation from antiquity through the Middle Ages, in the Renaissance, in the Enlightenment, in the Industrial Age, into our strange and accelerated present. It has survived not because it was preserved by powerful institutions, not because it was made mandatory in schools, but because it kept answering questions that kept being asked. Questions about how to hold a difficult world without being crushed by it, about what is actually within our control and what is not, about how to remain calm in the face of things that cannot be changed, about what the mind is capable of when it is trained, gently, over time, to see more clearly. These are not ancient questions. They are not historical questions. They are questions that every human being who has ever lain awake in the dark has asked in some form, in the particular language of their particular life. How do I carry this? How do I release that? What do I have to do? And what do I only believe I have to do? The Stoics spent their lives working on these questions, not in abstraction, not in the hushed corridors of academic philosophy, in the noise and difficulty of actual lives. A former slave, a struggling student, a Roman emperor, all of them asking the same questions, all of them finding, slowly, something that helped. Come with me into that, gently, slowly, without hurry. The night is long, and the questions are deep, and there is no examination at the end. Stoicism was born in Athens in the early years of the 3rd century before the Common Era, on a painted porch, the Stoa poikile. The painted Stoa was a covered walkway in the Athenian agora, decorated with famous scenes of battle, where Athenians gathered to walk and talk and conduct the business of a city. It was not a school in the formal sense. It was a public space, and it was there that a man named Zeno of Citium began teaching. Zeno is not among the most famous names of ancient philosophy. He doesn't have the celebrity of Socrates, or Plato, or Aristotle. His own writings have almost entirely been lost. What we know of his ideas comes primarily through later sources, through the reports and summaries of people who came after him. But what he set in motion on that covered porch has endured with a tenacity that few philosophical traditions have matched. He came to Athens by accident, in a way. The story goes that Zeno was a merchant from Citium, a city on the island of Cyprus, who was shipwrecked during a trading voyage and lost most of his goods. Finding himself in Athens with less than he had arrived with, he wandered into a bookshop and began reading a dialogue of Socrates. He was so moved by what he read that he asked the bookseller where he might find such a man. The bookseller, looking up at the street, saw the philosopher Crates of Thebes passing by and pointed. Zeno followed Crates, and from that began an education in philosophy. The shipwreck became, in the Stoic telling of the story, a kind of gift. The loss that brought Zeno to Athens, the disaster that redirected him from the life he had been living toward the life he would actually live. There is something worth sitting with in that detail. The Stoic story begins not with stability and comfort, but with loss, with a man whose ship sank and who found, in the aftermath of losing what he thought he had, a different kind of wealth, a kind of wealth that could not be shipwrecked, a kind of possession that no storm could take. The philosophy Zeno would eventually teach had this experience at its root, the recognition that the things we most rely on for our sense of security, wealth, reputation, physical health, the goodwill of others, are, in the deepest sense, not truly ours. They are borrowed. They are contingent. They can be taken by circumstance, by accident, by time. And if we place our full weight of well-being on things that can be taken, We will always be at the mercy of what the world decides to give or withhold. What Zeno began to articulate, and what the later Stoics would develop into one of the most complete ethical systems the ancient world produced, was the question: what, if anything, is truly secure? What can we actually stand on? The Stoics had a name for the distinction they were drawing. They called it the Dichotomy of Control. It is perhaps the single most important idea in all of Stoic philosophy, the conceptual foundation on which everything else is built. And it is, at its core, extraordinarily simple enough to state in a single sentence, simple enough that a child could understand it, simple enough that most thoughtful adults have arrived at some version of it on their own at some point in their lives, during some difficult moment when the difference between what they could and couldn't control became suddenly, painfully clear. Some things are up to us, some things are not up to us. That is the dichotomy Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who was born a slave and who would become one of the most influential teachers of the ancient world, opens the Enchiridion, his short handbook of Stoic practice, with this exact distinction, in almost those exact words. Some things are in our power, some things are not. In our power, he says, are our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. In short, all the things that are genuinely our own. Mental activity, not our reputation, not our body, not our property, or our wealth, or our status, or the opinions that others hold about us. Those are not in our power. They are subject to external forces, to the decisions of other people, to the workings of chance, in circumstance, in time. This is not a pessimistic statement. It does not mean we have no agency, or that effort is pointless, or that we should stop caring about outcomes. It is something more precise than that. It is an observation about the nature of our actual sphere of influence and the nature of our happiness and distress when we confuse that sphere with the larger world of outcomes, when we treat things that are not up to us as though they were, when we believe our well-being depends on our reputation, or on whether a particular event goes the way we want, or on whether someone else behaves toward us in the way we prefer. We make ourselves hostage. We give the power to determine our inner state to forces and people and circumstances that have no obligation to cooperate. And conversely, when we consistently fail to treat the things that are up to us, our thoughts, our values, our responses, the quality of our attention, the character of our actions, as the primary domain of our care, we neglect the one part of the world that is genuinely, reliably within our reach. The dichotomy of control is not a claim that the external world doesn't matter. It is a claim about where our primary investment of care and attention should go. It is a reorientation, a turning of the mind's gaze from the vast, uncontrollable horizon of what might happen and what others might do, toward the much smaller, much more manageable, much more genuinely habitable territory of what we are actually doing with our minds right now. Let that settle for a moment. The distinction between what is up to you and what is not. Most of the distress that keeps people awake at night, the replaying of conversations, the anticipating of future difficulties, the worrying about what others think or what circumstances will bring. Most of that falls, by the Stoic analysis, on the wrong side of the line. It belongs to the domain of things that are not up to us, and we are lying awake, exhausting ourselves with our attempts to control it through thought. This is not a criticism. It is the most human thing in the world. All of us do it. But there is something in the Stoic observation that, when it lands properly, produces a specific kind of release. Not the release of not caring, not indifference or detachment in the cold sense, but something more like recognition. The recognition that you have been working very hard on something that your work cannot reach, and that the appropriate response is not more effort, but a gentle reorientation, a turning toward what is actually yours to tend. Tonight, most of what the day gave you is behind you. Tonight, in the dark, in the quiet, the only thing up to you is the quality of your attention. And the quality of your attention right now can simply be rest. Epictetus was born sometime around 50 CE in a city of Hierapolis, in what is now Western Turkey. He was born into slavery. He spent the early decades of his life as a slave in Rome, owned by a man named Epictetus, who was himself a former slave who had become an influential freedman in Nero's court. The conditions of his slavery are not fully known. Some ancient sources describe him as having been physically abused by his master. One story, possibly apocryphal, describes his master twisting his leg, with Epictetus calmly informing him that the leg would break, and then, when it did, observing that he had been correct. Whether or not the story is literally true, it captures something about the Stoic principle it illustrates, that what your body undergoes and what your mind does with what your body undergoes are genuinely separate things. Epictetus was somehow allowed to attend the lectures of Musonius Rufus, a prominent Stoic teacher in Rome, while still a slave. After being freed, the exact circumstances are unclear. He began teaching philosophy himself, eventually establishing a school in Nicopolis in northwestern Greece, where he taught for the rest of his long life. He wrote nothing himself. What survives of his teaching comes through the notes of his student Arrian, who compiled two collections, the Discourses, a longer and more conversational record of Epictetus's lectures, and the Enchiridion, the short handbook. Together, they give us the clearest, most direct record of Stoic practice that has come down from antiquity, and they carry, throughout, the particular quality of a voice that has been tested. Epictetus was not theorizing about hardship from a position of comfort. He was teaching philosophy from within the experience of having been someone else's property. The dichotomy of control was not, for him, an academic exercise. It was a survival strategy. It was the answer to the question that his specific life posed. What do you do when the external world is almost entirely beyond your influence? What can no one take from you? His answer was the way you use your mind, the values you hold, the quality of your assent to your impressions, the Stoic term for the mental act of agreeing or disagreeing with the automatic thoughts and evaluations that arise in response to experience. No one could take that. Whatever happened to his body, whatever his master decided, whatever Nero decreed or the empire arranged, the inner life of his rational mind, the quality of his character, the integrity of his values, those remained his. In all the ways that mattered to him, those had never belonged to anyone else. That is a remarkable thing to believe. Remarkable because it is not obviously true and not easy to maintain. The conditions of enslavement were designed to undermine exactly this kind of inner autonomy, to make a person define themselves in terms of their condition, to make the external constraints into internal ones. That Epictetus found a way through this, and that the philosophy he developed in response to it has been helping people navigate difficulty for 2,000 years, is one of the more extraordinary threads in the history of human thought. At the other end of the social spectrum from Epictetus, as far from enslaved as the ancient Roman world permitted, there was Marcus Aurelius. He was emperor of Rome from 161 to 180 CE. Not just emperor, but one of the most powerful human beings who had ever lived at the time. The ruler of an empire that stretched from Hadrian's Wall in Britain to the deserts of Mesopotamia, governing something close to a quarter of the world's population. And every evening, for most of his life, he sat down and wrote in a private journal. The journal was never intended for anyone else. It was not a political document or a literary work. It was a practice, a daily exercise in the kind of self-examination that the Stoics considered the core work of a philosophical life. He addressed it to himself, sometimes directly, sometimes harshly, sometimes with what seems, across 2,000 years, like great gentleness. The journal survived. We call it the Meditations. It is one of the most read philosophy books of the past 2 millennia, which is remarkable given that it was never meant to be read by anyone other than its author, who was, by all accounts, not a particularly self-aggrandizing person, and would probably have found the fame of his private notebook somewhere between embarrassing and bewildering. What you find in the Meditations is not the private voice of power enjoying its privileges. It is the private voice of a person who found his position difficult, who was surrounded by people he didn't always trust, who faced military campaigns he didn't choose and political pressures he couldn't entirely resolve, who was tired some days and impatient others and occasionally disappointed in himself, who had lost children and close friends, and who kept returning again and again to the philosophical framework he had been given, to the Stoic principles he had learned as a young man from his teacher Fronto and from the writings of Epictetus, trying to apply them, failing sometimes, trying again. The Meditations are not the work of a saint or a sage. They are the work of someone practicing something, struggling with it, returning to it, finding it helpful, and then losing it and finding it again. This is one of the things that makes the book so durable. It is not a manual for the already enlightened. It is a record of a person, an imperfect and honest person, working very hard at the project of thinking more clearly and acting more justly and being less disturbed by things that do not ultimately matter, and doing it in private, not for credit or reputation, not for an audience, just doing it every evening because it helped. Marcus Aurelius wrote, at one point in the Meditations, a passage that has become one of the most widely quoted in the entire canon of Stoic literature. He was reflecting on the nature of the present moment, on the brevity of time as experienced against the vastness of time as it actually exists. He described how the past is already gone and the future is not yet here, and that the present moment, when you actually look at it clearly, is almost nothing. A knife edge between what has already happened and what has not yet happened, so thin that it barely exists as a duration at all. And he kept returning to this thought in various forms throughout the meditations, not as a reason for despair, not as evidence that life is meaningless, but as a practical tool for perspective, for a kind of cognitive unburdening. The Stoics called this practice the view from above, imagining your situation, your concerns, your difficulties from an elevated perspective, not dismissing them. The view from above is not contempt for the things of the earth. It is more like what happens when you take a step back from a painting you have been examining too closely. The details that seemed overwhelming when your nose was against the canvas resolve, at distance, into something you can see whole. Marcus imagined his concerns against the backdrop of historical time. He would write about Alexander the Great and his conquests, about what remained of them now, about the generations that had come and gone since, and would continue to come and go. He would note that everything passes, that the people who seemed important and powerful and permanent in their own time left no lasting trace, or at most a name in a book, that the mountain of one's reputation, which can feel so enormous from inside a life, is, from the perspective of centuries, barely a ripple. This is not nihilism. Marcus was not arguing that nothing matters or that effort is pointless. He was arguing that the scale at which we habitually experience our concerns is often too magnified, that we are held hostage to things that, from a slightly wider perspective, would lose their urgency, their edge, their ability to keep us awake. The anxiety about what someone said, or what someone thinks, or what will happen next week, these are real. They arise in real bodies and real minds, and they carry real discomfort. The Stoic practice does not deny this. It simply offers the perspective adjustment as a kind of medicine, not a cure, not a permanent state, a technique, something you practice the way you practice anything, imperfectly and repeatedly, until it begins to become available when you need it. Let the view from above settle around you now, very gently, not dramatically, just a slight expansion of perspective. The room you are in, small and warm. The house or building around it, a little larger. The neighborhood, the city, the country, the continent, the planet. Seen from the distance, the astronauts described. A blue marble in the dark, so small that a human thumb held at arm's length could obscure it entirely. Your concerns are real. They are also very, very small from that distance. Both of these things are true. Both of them can be held at the same time. One of the most psychologically sophisticated concepts in Stoicism is what the Stoics called prohairesis. It is a Greek word that does not have a clean equivalent in English, which is part of why Stoic philosophy can be difficult to fully translate. Prohairesis is sometimes translated as will, or choice, or purpose, but none of these captures it entirely. Perhaps the closest approximation is something like the faculty of intentional choice, the part of the human mind that evaluates impressions and decides how to respond to them. The Stoics believed that what distinguishes human beings from other animals is not our physical capacity. Many animals are stronger, faster, more durable. It is prohairesis, the capacity for rational evaluation, the ability to take an experience, or a stimulus, or an impression, what the Stoics called a fantasia, and to hold it up before the rational mind and evaluate it, rather than simply reacting to it automatically. Between stimulus and response, in the Stoic model, there is always a gap, a space. The impression arrives. someone says something that stings, or a situation arises that threatens to overwhelm, or a thought appears that fills itself with urgency and demand. And before you respond, there is a moment of prohoresis, the moment of choice, the moment where the faculty of rational evaluation can intervene. The Stoics did not believe this was always easy to access. The impression can be so immediate, so automatic, so visceral, that the gap between stimulus and response is very small. The practice of Stoicism is, in large part, the practice of expanding that gap, of training the mind to notice the space between the incoming impression and the going out response, and of using that space to evaluate clearly rather than react automatically. This has an extraordinary resonance with modern neuroscience and psychology. The neuroscience of emotion and response in the past several decades has confirmed, in its own language, something very close to what the Stoics were describing. The amygdala, the almond-shaped cluster of neurons deep in the brain's temporal lobe, is the structure most associated with rapid, automatic emotional responses. It receives sensory information and assesses it for threat faster than the cortex can evaluate it. It can initiate a stress response before the thinking parts of the brain have had time to fully process what is happening. This is not a flaw. It is a feature honed by millions of years of evolution in environments where the cost of a false negative, failing to respond to a real threat, was significantly higher than the cost of a false positive, responding to something that turned out not to be threatening. The amygdala is built to respond quickly, and it does. The body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. The heart rate increases, the attention narrows, the system prepares for action. But in the modern world, in the world most of the people listening to this voice tonight inhabit, most of the triggers that activate this ancient threat response system are not actual physical dangers. They are social threats, perceived slights, anticipated future difficulties, memories of past pain, uncertainties about what might happen. The amygdala doesn't cleanly distinguish between the threat of a predator and the threat of an important email that hasn't been answered. Both can trigger the cascade, and this is precisely where the Stoic practice of prohoresis intersects with modern understanding of the mind. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain most associated with rational evaluation, planning, impulse regulation, the weighing of consequences, is capable of modulating the amygdala's response. It can take the incoming signal, evaluate it, and say, "This is not an emergency. This is a difficult situation that requires clear thought, not a threat that requires immediate physical action." But it does this better when it is trained, when it has been practiced, when the habit of pausing between impression and response has been cultivated deliberately over time until it begins to be available even when the automatic reactions are strong. The Stoics were describing, 2,000 years before neuroscience, something real about the architecture of the mind. Seneca was the third of the great Roman Stoics, alongside Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, and in some ways, he is the most personally complicated. He was wealthy, very wealthy, one of the richest men in Rome during the reign of Nero, whose advisor and tutor he was. He owned multiple estates. He wrote eloquently about the dangers of wealth and the importance of simplicity. He advised the emperor while the emperor behaved in increasingly erratic and cruel ways. He was eventually ordered to commit suicide after being implicated, probably falsely, in a conspiracy against Nero. The gap between what he wrote and how he lived was something he was aware of, and sometimes addressed directly in his letters. He wrote to his friend Lucilius, "I am not yet the man I am trying to become. The work continues." This honesty, the willingness to hold up the distance between aspiration and reality, and name it without either shame or excusing, is characteristic of Stoic philosophy at its best. It does not present the philosopher as having arrived. It presents the philosopher as someone in the process of trying, with full awareness of the ways in which they fall short. Seneca's letters to Lucilius, 124 of them, ranging from brief notes to extended philosophical essays, are among the most accessible and human documents in all of classical literature. They feel, at a distance of 2,000 years, oddly familiar. The questions he is working through in them are questions you might find in a thoughtful person's journal tonight. How do I stop wasting time? How do I face the prospect of death without anxiety? How do I maintain equanimity when the people around me are difficult or dishonest? How do I find the right relationship with the things I own and the pleasures I enjoy? How do I be kind without being naive? How do I maintain friendships that are genuine rather than convenient? These are not ancient questions in the sense of being obsolete. They are questions that arise from the fact of being a human being, navigating a world that is sometimes beautiful and sometimes harsh, and always moving faster than you'd like. And that will eventually end for you personally in a way that you spend varying amounts of energy trying not to think about. Seneca thought about it directly. He wrote about death with a kind of patient, almost affectionate attention that is unusual in any era, not because he was morbid, but because the Stoic practice included, as one of its regular exercises, the contemplation of mortality, the bringing to awareness of the fact that time is limited and that the present moment is the only point at which life is actually being lived. The Stoic term for this was memento mori. Remember that you will die, not as a threat, not as a reason for despair, as a liberating reminder, as the thing that makes the present moment feel, when you really sit with it, more precious and more vivid and more deserving of attention than the anxiety about the future or the regret about the past that so often occupies the space where the present moment could be. The Stoics were not the only ancient tradition to practice this kind of death awareness. The Epicureans had their version. The Buddhists had theirs. Medieval Christianity would develop the Ars Moriendi tradition. But the Stoic version has a particular quality that makes it feel, even now, unusually direct. Not sentimental, not dramatic, just honest. You will die. This is known. The time is not known, but the fact is certain. Given that this is so, the question is how to live. And the Stoic answer was, by attending to the things that are genuinely within your power, by maintaining the quality of your inner life, by acting in accordance with your values rather than your fears, by not postponing the real work of being alive until some future condition that may or may not arrive. There is a Stoic practice that Marcus Aurelius returned to again and again in the Meditations, that Seneca explored in his letters, that Epictetus described in his lectures, and that modern psychology has independently arrived at through research on cognitive patterns and mental health. It is called Negative visualization. The practice is simple to describe and deeper than it appears to be. Imagine, in specific and honest detail, the loss of what you value, the loss of your health, the loss of someone you love, the loss of your home or your work or your financial security, the loss of your freedom, the loss of this evening, this conversation, this breath. Sit with that loss, imagined vividly, long enough to feel something real, and then return to the present moment, with everything you imagined losing still present, and feel the difference. This sounds, on the surface, like a recipe for anxiety, like an exercise in generating distress. But the Stoics and the modern psychologists who have studied the practice under names like gratitude priming or affective contrast found the opposite. Negative visualization, done properly, produces not anxiety, but a specific quality of presence, a kind of heightened appreciation for what is actually here, now, that ordinarily gets overlooked in the background of daily life, because the background of daily life tends to treat the things it depends on as permanent fixtures. We habituate to what we have. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, the process by which the emotional impact of a positive circumstance diminishes over time as the brain adjusts to it as the new baseline. The new relationship that brought such happiness becomes the ordinary relationship. The new home that felt like such an improvement becomes simply home. The health that was restored after illness becomes background, unremarkable, taken for granted. Negative visualization interrupts this habituation. It reminds the mind, briefly and vividly, that the things it has habituated to are not guaranteed, that they could be otherwise, that the person sleeping beside you, or the roof over you, or the body that carried you through the day. These are gifts in the deep sense, not just in the polite sense. They are contingent. They are here now and might not always be. And this reminder, this brief, honest, imagined encounter with their absence, produces, in the return to the present moment, something that functions like renewed appreciation, like the ordinary world briefly illuminated by the awareness of its own fragility. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this with his characteristic directness. Look at your children, your wife, your friends, and think, these are temporary loans, given to me for a time, not permanently owned. Think of them that way, not with despair, but with gratitude for the loan. This is not a comfortable practice. It is not the kind of thing that feels immediately pleasant. But the Stoics were never particularly interested in what felt immediately pleasant. They were interested in what, practiced over time, produced genuine equanimity, the kind of settled, unperturbed, sustainably functional well-being that was their philosophical goal. The neuroscience behind this practice is, as it turns out, quite interesting. The brain has what researchers call a negativity bias, a tendency to attend more readily and to hold more durably to negative experiences than positive ones. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes a certain sense. A creature that forgets dangers survives less well than one that holds them close. The negative is, in evolutionary terms, often more immediately consequential than the positive. But in the modern world, where most of what triggers negative attention is not a physical danger, but a social stress or a future uncertainty, the negativity bias can become a source of chronic, low-grade distress. The mind returns, again and again, to the difficult conversation, the unresolved conflict, the imagined future problem, while the good things, the warmth of a friendship, the satisfaction of a completed task, the pleasure of an ordinary meal, pass through without the same level of registration. The Buddhist practice of savoring and the Stoic practice of negative visualization are, from a neuroscience perspective, doing something similar. They are deliberately counteracting the negativity bias by bringing conscious attention to what is good in the present moment before it is lost to habituation or overwhelmed by the automatic tilt toward what is difficult. Rick Hanson, a psychologist and neuroscientist who has written extensively about this, uses the phrase, taking in the good, the deliberate, sustained, attentive registration of positive experience so that it can consolidate in memory and counterbalance the negativity bias. The practice involves not just noticing good experiences, but staying with them for long enough, 20 to 30 seconds, he suggests, that they have a chance to be encoded, to leave a trace. The ancient Stoics and the modern researchers arrived at different versions of the same insight from different directions, through different methods, in radically different cultural contexts. What they share is the observation that the mind's default relationship to the present moment is not optimal, that the mind needs to be trained gently and deliberately to attend to what is actually here. This is one of the more reassuring things about the history of human thought about the mind, that across such different traditions, such different times, such different vocabularies, the same practical wisdom keeps being discovered, not because it was borrowed or transmitted, but because it is actually true, because it works, because the human mind, wherever and whenever it has been carefully examined, reveals the same tendencies and responds to the same kinds of cultivation. The Stoics had a concept they called sympathia, universal sympathy, the idea that all things in the universe are connected, not metaphorically, not sentimentally, but literally, structurally, in the nature of reality itself. The Stoics were materialists in a specific sense. They believed that the universe was a single living organism, permeated by a rational principle they called the Logos, and that every individual thing, every person, every tree, every stone, every star was a manifestation of this single underlying reality. From this cosmological view followed an ethical conclusion. If all things are connected, then the good of the part and the good of the whole are not ultimately separable. To harm another is to harm something that shares your nature. To help another is to act in accordance with the rational principle that runs through everything. The life according to nature, the Stoic phrase for the good life, is, in part, a life lived in recognition of this connection. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this frequently and with great warmth. He wrote about human beings as social creatures, as animals designed by nature for cooperation, whose rationality was not just individual, but shared. He argued that to refuse to help others, to be cruel or selfish or petty, was to act against the deepest nature of what we are, not because we would be punished for it, but because it was simply wrong, out of alignment with the rational nature we share with the cosmos and with each other. The Stoic conception of sympathy was not limited to human beings. It extended to the natural world, to the cosmos as a whole. Marcus wrote about the interconnection of all things, how everything flows from everything else, how nothing exists in isolation, how the apparent separateness of individual things is a surface phenomenon beneath which a deeper unity runs. This view has an interesting resonance with modern ecology and systems thinking, with the understanding that living systems are not collections of independent parts, but webs of relationship, where the condition of each element depends on and affects the condition of all the others. The Stoics arrived at something like this insight, not through empirical ecology, but through philosophical reasoning about the nature of the universe. And while the specific metaphysics are different, the logos is not the same as evolutionary biology. The ethical implication is similar. We are not separate. Our well-being and the well-being of the systems we are embedded in are entangled. There is something quietly important in that understanding for anyone lying awake in the dark, feeling isolated. The Stoic sympathy says, "You are not separate from the world. You are part of it." The connection you feel when you see someone else's suffering, or when you experience the beauty of a landscape, or when you feel the warmth of a particular friendship. These are not illusions or sentimentalities. They are the recognition of something real. You are related to all of this, not distantly, not metaphorically, but as one expression of the same underlying reality. That is not a small thing to carry. One of the most beautiful practices the Stoics described is called the morning meditation. Each morning, before the day began, the Stoic would take time to prepare the mind, not to plan the day in the logistical sense, but to anticipate its difficulties in the philosophical sense, to think through what challenges the day might bring, and to remind themselves in advance of the principles they intended to live by. Epictetus described something like this: "Go out each morning knowing what you will likely face. Impatient people, ungrateful people, people who are struggling and taking it out on others, and prepare yourself to respond with equanimity rather than reactivity, with kindness rather than frustration, not because the world deserves your kindness, regardless of how it behaves, but because your own character is the thing you are most responsible for maintaining." Marcus Aurelius did something similar at the beginning of several passages in the Meditations, a kind of checking in with his principles, a regrounding in what he believed, before turning his attention to the day's demands. The corresponding evening practice, the practice that is perhaps most relevant to this particular hour, this particular darkness, was the evening review. At the end of the day, the Stoics would sit with the day that had passed, not to judge it, not to grade themselves harshly or indulgently, but to observe it, to notice what had gone well, where they had acted in accordance with their values, where they had been patient or kind or clear-headed, and to notice what had not gone well, where they had been reactive or fearful, or had given too much weight to things outside their control. Not to flagellate themselves for it, but simply to note it, to understand it, to use the observation as information for tomorrow. The Stoic evening review was not self-criticism. It was self-knowledge, and self-knowledge in the Stoic framework was not a luxury or an indulgence. It was the foundation of everything. You cannot work on the quality of your prohairesis, your faculty of rational choice, if you don't know how it is actually behaving. You cannot improve the accuracy of your impressions if you don't notice when they have been inaccurate. The evening review was the mechanism by which the practice of the day became the wisdom of the next day. Seneca described this in one of his letters. He wrote about his own version of the practice, asking himself at the day's end what vice he had resisted, what fault he had corrected, in what way he had improved. And then, having done this review, he slept well. The idea being that a mind that has honestly accounted for its day, that has not buried the day's difficulties under distraction or avoidance, but has looked at them clearly and briefly and set them down, that mind is free to rest. It has done what can be done with today. There is something very practically useful in this, if you had not already found a version of it. The mind that lies awake at night, replaying the day, is often doing so because it has not yet finished processing the day. The replaying is, in a sense, an attempt at the review, an attempt to find the closure, the understanding, the perspective that would allow the day to be genuinely set down. The Stoic practice says, do this deliberately, briefly, and with equanimity, and then the rest of the mind can go quiet. Your body is very heavy now. The thoughts are slower, gentler at their edges. The Stoics are far away in history, 2,000 years and more. Zeno on his painted porch, Epictetus in his school in Nicopolis, Seneca at his writing table, Marcus in his tent during the northern campaigns, writing to himself by lamplight before sleeping, all of them practicing, all of them imperfect, all of them doing the work. And here you are, in your own darkness, in your own particular life, with your own particular version of all the same questions they were asking. How do I hold this? What is actually mine to carry? What can I set down? There is a passage in the Meditations where Marcus writes about the present moment with an unusual quality of gentleness. He says, confine yourself to the present, not as a command, but as a kind of permission. Confine yourself to the present. The past is fixed and cannot be changed. The future is unknown and cannot be controlled. The present moment is the only temporal location at which anything can actually be done, where choice is actually possible, where attention can actually land, where the quality of the mind can actually be exercised. And the present moment, when you actually look at it, is very small, very manageable. It is this breath, this darkness, this warmth, this particular quality of quiet that the late hours produce. Not the accumulated weight of the day, not the anticipated weight of tomorrow. Just this. This is not a denial of the past or the future. Marcus wrote about both extensively and seriously. It is a recognition of where power actually lives, of where the practice can actually operate, of where the mind can be most genuinely at home. The present moment is always, in some sense, survivable. The past has been survived. It is behind you, fixed, complete. The future hasn't happened yet and may arrive more gently than anticipated, and in any case, cannot be managed from here. The present moment is always exactly the size of this breath, always exactly as large as right now. And right now, you are warm. You are still. You are not required to do anything. The day is complete. The night holds everything that needs to be held. Confine yourself to the present. The ancient Stoics believed in what they called the logos, the rational principle that runs through all things, that gives the universe its order and coherence and its capacity for being understood. Whatever you believe about the metaphysics of that idea, whether the universe has any such ordering principle, whether rationality is woven into nature or only projected onto it by human minds, there is something in the concept that is worth holding gently tonight. The idea that beneath the noise and difficulty and unpredictability of experience, there is some kind of order, not a guarantee that things will go the way you prefer, not a promise that effort will always be rewarded or that the good will be protected from difficulty. The Stoics were not naive about how the world worked. They watched people they loved die from illness. They experienced exile and financial ruin and political betrayal and physical suffering. Marcus lost children. Seneca was killed. Epictetus was enslaved. Not an order that protects from hardship, but an order that makes hardship coherent, that places it within a framework large enough to hold it. That says, this is part of something. This is not random or without meaning, even when its meaning is not immediately visible. The part fits into the whole in ways that the part cannot always see. You don't have to believe in the Stoic logos to take something from this. The idea that there is something larger than your particular difficulty, something larger than the particular night, something that has been moving through time longer than you have been alive and will continue moving after. This idea has a quality that, when the mind is tired and the night is quiet, can be genuinely restful. You are part of something. You have always been part of something. The something continues, whether or not you are thinking about it, and you are allowed, tonight, to simply be within it, to be carried by it, to allow the logos, or the universe, or the simple fact of existence itself, the extraordinary, improbable, beautiful fact that there is something rather than nothing, that you are here, that this night is happening, to be larger than your concerns. They are real, your concerns. They will be there tomorrow, but they are small, and the night is large, and the quiet is patient. And the Stoics, 2,000 years ago, sat with the same darkness and asked the same questions and found, in the practice of simply attending more carefully to their own minds, something that helped. You are part of that inheritance. The thoughts are quieter now. The philosophy has become something softer than argument, something more like atmosphere, the presence of those ancient voices, patient, honest, imperfect, trying, drifting at the edges of awareness without requiring anything. Zeno on the painted porch, watching the Athenian agora fill and empty in the morning light. Epictetus, speaking to his students in the cool air of Nicopolis. His voice, unhurried, returning again and again to the same central question. Marcus in his tent, the lamplight steady, writing the same instruction to himself for the 100th time because he kept needing to hear it. Seneca at his desk in the early morning, before the household woke, putting into words something he had been living toward for decades. All of them practicing, all of them still practicing. And you, in your darkness, in your warmth, at the end of your particular day, having carried what you carried and done what you did, you are practicing too, in your own way. Even the act of lying here, of choosing to turn your attention toward something gentle and vast and philosophical, rather than toward the next obligation or the next worry, that is a practice. That is prohoresis. That is the faculty of choice operating in the direction of rest. The Dichotomy of Control says, what is up to you is your attention, and right now, your attention is here, in this quiet, in this warmth. That is exactly right. That is exactly where it should be. Let it stay. Let the thoughts that are still moving slow down now, the way a river slows as it approaches still water, the current losing its urgency, spreading out, quieting. Let the images come without following them. Let the darkness be soft. Let the warmth be enough. Let Marcus write his last letter to himself, quietly, by lamplight, far away in time. Let Epictetus teach his last class, the students sitting in the cool air, the words drifting. Let Seneca fold his letter to Lucilius, seal it, set it down, and let you be here, simply here, in the present moment that is always exactly this size, this breath, this quiet, this warmth. This is all there is, right now, and it is enough. It has always been enough. Confine yourself to the present. The present is only this, and this is very, very still. Sleep well, and good night.